I welcome you all, basketball degenerates, to another episode of the Pass First, Shoot Later podcast brought to you by the OC Basketball League. I'm your host, Zico Pepic, here with one of my partners, Michael Van Wyck, our other partner in crime, Omar Aladine. He's a little under the weather today, so he won't be joining us, unfortunately. Omar, heal up.
How's it going, everybody? Zico said, unfortunately, maybe it's a little break from Omar. Just playing Omar.
There's some good content when Omar's there, you have to admit.
There's definitely extra to go through and unpack.
I did send Omar the link just in case, he wakes up from power nap and feels like he can give it a go for a little bit. So maybe he hops on. Who knows?
And he could be the last phone call. See if he's really sick or just.
I did speak to him. He did sound like he was a little sick. I would have kept going. I would have MJ'd it, but not everyone's MJ. So
Dang, he could have had his flu podcast.
exactly. It would have been epic. We would have talked about it years from now. So his loss. So we're changing gears a little bit today. We had planned on finishing our top 10 series. Instead, we're going to postpone that, unfortunately, for 1 week. Omar should be back by next week, and
We need everybody.
he wanted
We
us
need
to,
everybody to hear Omar's top 10.
yeah, he wanted us to read his top 10 off for him, but I need the explanations because I know something's going to be there that will throw everybody off a little bit, and yeah. He's got to defend himself. So
He's gonna throw us a curveball. He's gonna have Taj Gibson and Brooke Lopez in there.
I doubt Taj Gibson will be in, but I would not be surprised if Brooke Lopez was.
There you go.
So we're changing gears. Instead of talking about top 10 this week, we're actually going to be talking about power rankings. We planned on doing this at some point during the season anyway. We plan on doing maybe 2 or 3 episodes as the season progresses. We're about a third of the way into the season at this point, and we think it's a good time to do a power ranking. We're going to be basing it off of NBA.com's power ranking and analyzing it and giving our thoughts on each team and whether we feel like it's too high, too low, talk about how that team's doing and go from there.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, obviously, we're not going to get in depth on all 30 teams. We'll kind of just peruse a couple and let you know where they're at and if we think that they deserve it or not. But
I know Mike doesn't want to peruse any of the bottom seed teams. I know he has no interest in talking about any of them.
no, actually, we'll just jump right in. Number 30, Detroit. They could break some history. They're on a 23 game losing streak, the third
They're on the
longest
wrong
ever.
end of history.
Hey, it's history's history, man.
I know. I hate seeing that, man. That's so hard. Imagine being on a team like that. That's that side of history. That's just so miserable. Imagine practice every day and what they're going through and the games. It's demoralizing. And I feel bad. Like Cade Cunningham actually had an amazing game today. But I think pretty sure he had 43 points in his game today. Almost pulled off a victory. I believe they lost by 4. So it's stressful to be in a situation like that where you're losing much.
The record, just so everyone knows, is at 28. It was over 2 seasons, right? 76ers, 28 in a row recently, 2015. But yeah, they got 5 more to go. They can get that. That can be theirs alone.
Yeah.
So
again, they lost today actually by 6 points. Cade Cunningham, 43 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Bogdanovich is back as well. He had 25 points as well, but it just wasn't enough to beat the Hawks. So it sucks. I hate seeing that. It's not easy for a team being in a situation like that. I'm hoping they pull one off. I hope it's not against any of the teams that I like or root for.
Let's see who they have in their next 5 and see if this is a legitimate chance. So they got Brooklyn, who's a 500 team. They got Brooklyn back to back, actually.
I hope they beat Brooklyn.
So they got Brooklyn, then Boston, then Toronto, and then their 5th game is the Rockets. So you got, 500, 500. and they're definitely going to get beat by Boston. Then you have a losing record in the Raptors and a just above 500 in Houston. So I mean, it's if they don't get one of these two against Brooklyn, they're definitely going to be tied for the second longest of all time at 26 because they're not going to beat Boston.
As a Laker fan, I'd be so happy if they somehow beat
Oh,
Boston.
maybe Boston rests everybody that game because it's only
It's
Detroit.
possible. It's
So
possible that they do.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with NBA.com putting them at 30.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. I don't. They have the San Antonio Spurs at 29 right now, and I think the San Antonio Spurs are in. Even if the record isn't great, they're 4-21. They're far and ahead above Detroit in my book at this point. So
And they're coming off an 18-game losing streak on their own, but they're one of these younger teams. I think that they got some room to grow. They play at a fast pace. They're fun to watch, but at the end of the day, they're not closing games and they're not that great. So
fortunately, they ended that streak against the Lakers. So, but how fun was it watching Wembanyama and
Lakers were sitting everybody, weren't they?
yeah, most of the people, yeah. But
Yeah.
actually, I'm pretty sure Wembanyama and did AD play? AD did not play that game. I'm thinking about the game before. Wembanyama and AD had a fun matchup the game before that.
I don't think AD or LeBron played in that game.
They did not. No, I think LeBron actually did play. AD did not. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of basketball in this last week, and probably not a lot this week either, just because I'm watching a lot of children 10 and under play a lot of basketball because my kids have it every day. So
You know what? Sometimes that's more fun.
yeah, they're
Some of the games that are going on. I told you guys I have certain teams I watch a little more consistently. When I watch them play against one of these other teams, that's kind of how I get, you know, my information about some of these other teams. But Lakers the most, Knicks, the Dallas Mavericks, Luka and Kyrie are two of my favorite players, so I watch them pretty often. Philly because I love Embiid, Denver because I like Jokic, Miami because I love that Heat culture. So maybe one or two other teams here and there as well, but mostly those. So right now I'm definitely keeping tabs on Lakers versus Knicks. Knicks are currently up 90-80. Julius Randle's doing some damage in the paint. Yeah, it's a quick turnaround for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to argue too much with, we'll go back on these power rankings with these first five. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to get nitpicky, maybe you could switch the Spurs and Washington. But like I said, Spurs had an 18-game losing streak. Washington's also 4-21. They also play with pretty decent pace. So the second fastest team as far as pace. But other than that, they suck.
So we talked about this earlier in the season. One of the things I don't like about media is whenever there's a player, a generational player like Victor Wembanyama drafted, Zion Williamson, LeBron, all these big time names, they put so much pressure on these guys. I remember there were predictions from expert writers saying Victor Wembanyama is going to be defensive player of the year. He's going to get the Spurs into the playoffs. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. I think the amount of pressure they put on some of these kids, it sets them up to be ridiculed pretty badly at times. And I think that's social media today. I actually feel a little bad for Victor Wembanyama's situation. I think the fact that he's with the Spurs and Popovich is there to guide him through something like this is huge for him. But there's so many times where things just go wrong in so many different ways. And you root for everybody to do well, unless they're Boston, you root for them to do bad. So, I hope they turn around. I think Victor's going to have a great career regardless, but,
he's a kid. He needs time to grow, get stronger, accustomed to the pace of play. I mean, obviously he's pretty skinny as far as his fill for his body. So I think that once he grows into that, once he gets stronger, he'll be a little better. So that comes with time. You got to grow into. I mean, and by no means is he gonna be, I think, the best player ever. But you look at even Michael Jordan. He had more years in college. He played, he developed into a player. He wasn't expected to be the guy immediately. I mean, he did pretty good. His rookie year, obviously winning rookie of the year, and then he got hurt. Then he came on, but there was nobody knew Michael Jordan was going to be Michael Jordan. I mean, he was the third pick. He wasn't the first pick. So
Actually, there was somebody who had that famous quote. Who was that had that quote where they asked him who they should pick for the second pick? He said Michael Jordan, and they said, "But we need a center." He said, "Draft Michael Jordan, play him at center." Who had that quote? Dang, man.
that I don't know. And you're always, I mean, that could have been a hot take at the time. You know what I mean?
No, it was that crazy coach from Indiana. Remember the guy who used to throw all the chairs?
Oh, McKnight.
Yeah, it was McKnight. Yeah, McKnight. That was his quote.
Okay.
Draft Jordan, play him at center.
There you go.
So some
That
people,
would have been a smart decision.
yeah. History would have been rewritten, and Portland Trailblazers would have been the most dominant league in history with Clyde Drexler and Jordan and Michael Thompson. Our beloved Laker Michael Thompson would have been there still. So
Yeah.
moving on though, Washington Wizards. This is an interesting one because they had a report recently that came out. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are available for trade. The franchise does not see that either of them being building blocks.
Does any of the NBA see them as building blocks after what they did in
No. I mean, I could see Kuzma in the right situation actually being a good player, not as a 1, 2, or 3 option. Period. If he can learn to be a 4th or 5th player on the team, whether he's coming off the bench to be a number 1 scorer as a 6th man.
You think he can be a Jordan Clarkson?
That's a pretty good comparison. I felt like even when he was a Laker, I've that year with the Lakers, the Lakers had Julius Randle, they had Kyle Kuzma, and they had Larry Nance Jr. I knew Julius Randle was going to be the best player of those 3. I think fans got hyped with Larry Nance because of his leaping ability and the dunks and everything like that. Like that, it was eye opening for them to see someone do those things. And Kyle Kuzma he had the long ball. So people get excited with those 2 things, and I wasn't surprised they're hyped by them. But you look at today, Julius Randle's a better player of all of them. Larry Nance, is.
They had Ingram too, though, right?
Ingram too. Ingram played small forward, so it worked out with Randle and Ingram. So
Ingram, depending on who else is on your team, you might argue him over Randle.
Well, I mean, what I meant was that power forward spot.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, but I liked Kuzma and Clarkson coming off the bench being those 2 scorers. I think that's a pretty good bench if you got that. So I think Kuzma in the right situation could be very good. He just at number 1 has to accept it. Number 2 has to understand he's not 1, 2, or 3 on any championship team. And you know what? It's an eye opener for Jordan Poole. It has to be at this point. However good he thought he was on the Warriors, it's completely different when teams start planning for you.
Yeah, 100%.
So
it was maybe the 4th guy.
Exactly.
In Golden State. And that's a tough maybe.
Even if he was the second leading scorer, he was maybe the 4th guy.
Yeah.
So
moving on, Memphis. I don't think Memphis is going to stay down at this 27 very long. If you're going a power ranking versus based on where they've done this season, then yeah, they deserve it. But they're getting Ja back in 1 game, and then they've missed a few others with injuries. I think they'll get back to it. Do I think that they're the team they were? Do I think they're a number 2 seed in the West? No, but they're definitely not the 27th worst in the NBA.
They're an interesting team to look at because they're at 6-18. It is not out of the question that they could still make the playoffs if Ja comes back. And
I think they'll make the play-in for sure.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say for sure. The West is loaded, but
West is loaded.
So I think they'll make the play-in.
But they still have a really good team. The thing that sucks is they did lose Steven Adams for the whole year, which hurt them size-wise. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is more than capable of playing center for this team. I actually think he's more of a center than he is a power forward, and I think the team plays better with him at the 5. But I'm interested to see what happens when Ja comes back.
I lied. I don't think Memphis will make it. Now that I'm looking at it, I think Houston will fall out, and I think Golden State will actually. I think they'll get in there.
I think so. I think that
I
was
don't think
one of my predictions earlier in the year as well.
I can't see Memphis getting ahead of any of these other teams unless injuries hit or something crazy. But
No,
you got Phoenix at the 10 right now and Golden State missing, and I don't see that happening.
yeah.
So yeah, Memphis probably is out.
Well, they're definitely going to jump the number 26 spot, Portland
Yeah.
Trailblazers. Portland's 6-19 right now. They're going to have their own growing pains. They've got a really young team. We've already touched on them a little earlier this season. Um, and they're a work in progress. I feel bad for Chauncey Billups. I actually think he's going to be a really good young coach. He's going to have a lot of patience with this group. But seeing Scoot Henderson's last 4 or 5 games, I think there's some hope for them. He's had some really good games lately. He's had double doubles. He had 23-point, 10 assist night. So I think he's starting to figure it out. Everybody was kind of hard on him that he got put into the G League earlier in the year. I didn't think that was a bad thing. I think it was a good thing for him. Sometimes you kind of need to recollect yourself playing against elite point guards.
Confident.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad to see he's doing a little better.
But I think they're rebuilding. Everyone knows they're rebuilding. There's no expectations on Portland. I wouldn't expect much more out of them next season either, to be honest. But
I could see them dropping down to being the worst team with Detroit by the end of the season, honestly.
yeah, yeah.
I think the Spurs might pass them at some point once they get things going.
I agree with that. 25 is Charlotte. They're just hit by a ton of injuries, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they lost LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, Cody Martin, PJ Washington, and Mark Williams. At some point, Terry Rozier was out for a short period as well. So it's just been a revolving door for them, unfortunately. But either way, honestly, this is the kind of roster I just don't see.
Not a playoff team, yeah. I don't think they'd be 25 if they were healthy because I think LaMelo Ball's pretty decent. Gordon Hayward can still score occasionally. But yeah, they're not a playoff team even in the East.
Their draft pick, Brandon Miller, is I think he's going to be a really solid player. I think he has length, which I really like seeing at the 3 spot. He has a really similar structure to Paul George. If you watch him play, the way he moves, the way he can handle the ball, the way he can shoot, I think he plays a little faster, which I like in today's NBA. But I think he's going to be a really solid player for that team. I think him and LaMelo are something they could build around. So they're a team to like keep an eye on because they're also in a situation where they can make a trade to at least compete more consistently. So 24 Utah Jazz. We touched on this team recently in the last episode, actually, I believe, and 2 episodes ago. And they took a step back. I really didn't like the John Collins trade that they made. They actually just put John Collins on the block again. They said that he cannot figure out their offense, which I don't know how anybody can't figure out any of today's NBA offense. It's just basic as can be.
You're an NBA player, you should be able to put it together, man. It's not. No one's running a complex system that's that difficult.
It kind of feels like John Collins doesn't want to be there,
especially if you're not a guard.
Yeah, John Collins. It kind of feels like John Collins doesn't want to be there, and is using that as a way to get out. He has. I watched a little bit of their games earlier in the season. He just has really poor energy for them. So it's another team where I expect changes along the way. I just don't know if those changes will be tank a little more and get more draft picks, which Danny Ainge is known to do, or if they're going to try to improve the roster. They also did announce that Jordan Clarkson's available for a deal as well. So I know there's going to be playoff teams looking at some of those players and seeing if they can make moves to improve their roster.
They had some injuries too. They were missing Markkanen for a little bit. Jordan Clarkson's out. but still, I mean, West is stacked. They are where right now in the West? Yeah, they're behind. They're 2.5 games behind Golden State. So they're in the 12. I don't see them as a play.
Possible they could. Like again, that's what I said. Like maybe they make a trade where they trade.
No one wants to go to Utah.
Well, I mean, I think Markkanen wanted to go to Utah. I think he's kind of comfortable and happy there.
Okay. Toronto's at 23. They also have a losing record, 10-15. I mean, they're even though they're at 23, they're the 10th seed in the East. The East is not uh, loaded like the West. I think it's very top heavy. I think you have maybe we'll
There are
call
four
it
teams in the East.
three teams.
I
There's
think
three
there's four
teams.
teams.
Yeah, I don't. New
We'll
York.
get to it. We'll get to why. I'm gonna explain why. Going over the Raptors, there's something that I just don't like. Like again, like I like playing GM. I do not like the construction of the Raptors. They have like three guys that start that are basically power forwards in the NBA today. They're all playing the same position next to Dennis Schroeder. They have five guys on the court who can't shoot a three. There's really poor spacing. They have to decide who they want to keep and who they want to trade. Scotty Barnes is a franchise type of player that they could build around. As great as Pascal Siakam has been for the Toronto Raptors, I think they have to trade him, honestly. And
trade him while his value's high. I don't think he's going much higher than he is right now.
exactly. And honestly, if I were the Raptors, I'd kind of retool. And there's a trade I've had in mind for the Raptors. I actually think is ideal. I'm sorry.
Does it include Zach LaVine?
No, actually, it does not. The trade I actually had an idea for the Raptors was I would want to bring a Canadian home because I know what Canadians are like when it comes to the Toronto Raptors. They're great fans. It's a place that everybody that goes there and plays, they rave about. I would want them to trade for Andrew Wiggins, and I think that there's a trade there if Golden State Warriors and Toronto Raptors would talk. I think Siakam for Wiggins and probably Moody and multiple draft picks. I actually think that's the kind of trade that would actually save the Golden State.
Not better than Wiggins.
Siakam's not better than Wiggins.
Well, when Wiggins tries,
Wiggins is a better on-ball defender, but my issue right now for this team is actually not Wiggins. My issue for the Golden State Warriors is actually Draymond Green, and I feel
he's gone right now. So
I know, but put Siakam in the situation of Draymond Green. Put him in that position.
If Golden State makes a trade that doesn't include Chris Paul, then they're tanking.
I don't know, man. They just recently moved Wiggins to the bench. He looks disinterested.
He very well could be.
Yeah. So I think Siakam for Wiggins would be huge for both teams.
Maybe. I don't know if I would trade Wiggins for Siakam though.
I would do it.
I don't know if I would trade Wiggins and Steph for Siakam.
Wiggins and Steph? I didn't say Steph.
Oh, Steph.
Oh, Steph.
Well, somebody else.
You'd have to, I believe, just to make the money work.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'd probably be Wiggins and Moody and a draft pick.
And I don't know if I would do that.
All right, moving on. Another team that needs to blow it up a little bit. Number 22, the Chicago Bulls.
And yeah, I don't know what they're gonna. Obviously, they need to blow it up. Zach LaVine wants to be gone. I don't know if we had that whole discussion in depth. I don't know if anyone wants to make that move for somebody who I think majority of the league now feels is probably overpaid. But
it was reported earlier today that the two teams that are still monitoring the Zach LaVine situation are the Lakers and the Sacramento Kings. The Lakers cannot pull the trigger until later on in the season when certain players that were signed earlier in the season, namely D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura, are available to be traded. But
That date, isn't that like the
January
21st?
15th,
Soon? Oh,
January
it's January.
15th. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's highly possible that Zach LaVine does get moved, possibly the Lakers after that date. Sacramento, I'm not sure who they trade for. I think you'd have to trade Harrison Barnes to make that money work for them. And I don't know what else you'd else have to attach on to that to make it work.
That almost would be okay. Harrison Barnes is a little on the
You'd
older
have to
side.
attach on more.
Yeah, because of his age, but you can give up a draft pick
No,
there.
salary is what I was referring to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Atlanta. I know we talked about Zach LaVine and the Bulls enough. Atlanta, I think, is another team that they'll make the playoffs because they're in the East, but nobody looks at them or thinks of them as a threat. I mean, they're the 11th seed right now, so they're not even in the playoffs, but they had a pretty tough schedule recently.
yeah,
And they've missed, looks like a lot of players. Bogdanovich missed games, Clint Capella missed games, Hunter missed games, Jalen Johnson missed 10 games. So,
I will say this: the Hawks kind of needed to reset trading John Collins. They took a little bit of a step back. I like some of the younger guys that they have on their team. Um, Jalen Johnson's one of them. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's going to be a much better player than John Collins was. He's just younger, so they needed some time with him. AJ Griffin's going to be a really good 3-and-D player. They already have DeAndre Hunter, and I really like Sadiq Bey and Bogdanovich. There's pieces there. I think they might have to trade DeJounte Murray because I didn't think that fit as well as they had hoped.
yeah.
And maybe that's the trade. Maybe they look to see if they can get LaVine for DeJounte Murray and try to make something like that work. So they have pieces. They need time. So they're a few years away, but
Do you really think, though, that Trey Young can be that guy? I
they
don't.
they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, didn't they, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone overachieved.
Right. They did overachieve. Trey played insanely well.
He did.
Um, if they get a second guy, then yeah, I could see that happening. We just talked about the East isn't that great. You just talked about Philly being one of those 3 teams. Where's their where's their third option? It's basically like if you look at the game today, they just lost to the Bulls. Tyrese Maxey and Embiid did everything, and no one else on that roster did anything else. So the Atlanta Hawks have a little deeper team. Embiid gets hurt, this team might move on. So something
Injuries
can
are.
always happen, which happened that year that they made it. So
This is true. All right, we're into what
number
we'll call
20.
the second tier of teams, right? Which probably could make a playoff run if healthy, if the cards fall right. Number 20, Golden State. I've already said I don't think they'll stay this low, even with Draymond out. I think they'll regroup. I think something will break their way. Either Clay will start playing like he has the last couple games, or Wiggins will get interested and start playing. Maybe they do make a trade, but I think they have a lot of pieces that can still get them at least into the playoffs. In a opening round series, you probably don't want to see Steph Curry in Golden State, regardless of the seed, but it takes a lot of work, and I think they need to reset and figure it out.
One thing I'm going to note is Golden State Warriors offensive rating and defensive rating are nearly identical. 114.7 for offensive rating, 114.6 for defensive rating. They're 16th and ranked 16th in both of those categories, with nearly everything going wrong this season.
Yeah.
Draymond has put them in a tough spot. I'm a huge Draymond Green fan, but at this point for me, it's enough's enough, dude. Stop. Like there's, if you don't want to be there, ask for a trade privately. We'll get the deal done. We'll move you along, and this team can move forward. If you do want to be there, just stop. Like you're hurting your team at this point. And I love your energy. I love what you do, but there's a line. And he said he hit Nurkic on that play. He didn't intend to.
No, I mean, you can
He
say
did.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
I didn't intend to run the stop sign. Sorry, but I mean, the dude had his hand in it, and nobody closes their fist when trying to seal. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think he just needs to clean himself up a little bit at this point and think of the betterment of the team at this point. So I
How
hope.
long do you think indefinite's going to be? You think it's the whole season?
No, I don't think it's the whole season because come on, man, just was suspended for only 25 games. What you're gonna do? You're gonna suspend Draymond Green for the whole season? Like, no.
Yeah, but what did Ja do? Ja wasn't on a basketball court. He didn't technically do anything illegal.
What Ja did could have, had they not looked to stop it, could have escalated to something more.
Yeah, yeah, that's all true and whatnot, but Draymond is doing things on the court, causing physical harm to other players multiple times. He has a rap. I mean, it is because of who he is, but I don't think it'll be the whole season. I think they'll let him back at some point, maybe after the All-Star break, something like that, depending on
You think
where
it's going to be
it
that
is.
long? I don't know.
Oh yeah,
This is like where I get annoyed. Like I like old school NBA where guys are physical. I have no problem with physicality. Like you can even be a little dirty, like fine. Like old school
you don't
NBA,
need to be
this is
dirty to
like
be
I'll see
physical.
you next week.
Yeah, you don't need to be dirty to be physical.
Yeah, I agree. But like still, it's like to me, it just doesn't make sense that they would want to suspend him for that long when, just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, guys were clotheslining people and getting up and shooting free throws and not even getting kicked out the game. So um I hope they don't do that, honestly.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Like I said, they need a reset. Maybe get his mind right. Maybe after the end of the year, maybe starting the new year, they'll let him back. I think a lot of it will be they'll probably read things, see what the media says and what fans think, because the NBA does cater to a lot of fans. You do want to see the players play, so who knows? So moving on, 19,
One
Miami
of my
Heat. What do you
favorite
think?
teams. One of my favorite teams. I love the Heat. Um, they're a funny group, man. They did the same thing last year. They started off really slow. Um, they uh, they're not as good as they were last year, but they're starting to like do certain things where like, they're gonna find a way. They're gonna find a way. They're gonna be another threat again. Um, just Jimmy Butler and Bam. I just love that duo so much. They play so hard, and they're 15-11 right now. Um, I
And
think
there
they're
was
going to make a trade. I don't know who will be for, but I think they will make a trade. I think this team will get better. I think they'll be right in the conversation in the East towards the end of the season, and I would not be surprised to see another big playoff run. This team's just built for the playoffs, so um,
so 15, 11, like you said, they lost tonight. So 15 and 12, they're in the seventh seed, but they're tied as far as games because New York's played less with New York and Cleveland, who's the sixth and fifth seed. So a win tomorrow, or they probably play Wednesday, a win and a New York loss, and all of a sudden they're in the fifth seed and they're right in it. So
I'm a little surprised that Miami is ranked 19th with a 15-11 record, but the Brooklyn Nets are ranked 18th with a 13-12 record.
and Miami hasn't had Bam for the last 7 games.
Yeah.
So
And we're missing Tyler Hero to start the season. So yeah, they're a team to watch out for, man. I think as the season progresses, they're just gonna get better and better.
and I mean, like you said, they have that culture. They know what it takes. They've been there. I think Jimmy Butler will keep doing what he's doing and he'll get them into the playoffs. And I think they'll be past the first round of the playoffs, but I still don't think they're better than any of those big three in the East, which I'm sure we'll come up to soon here.
So number 18, Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn kind of just is like whatever to me. They have like amazing depth. They actually have pretty. They're actually, they have a lot of good players. It's like I don't know what to expect to them from them.
They
I
have a
love the
lot.
coverages.
They have a lot of good players. They have no great player. They have no go-to who's going to be that guy, right?
They have the capability of trading for a star if a star were to become available because they have so many pieces. So it's something to keep in mind. They could be a team that like suddenly gets a star if somewhere were to come available, and um, you
Yeah.
know,
Who do you trade?
they got a lot of pieces there that they could trade.
Let's take a second to just talk about Ben Simmons and that fall off. How did that happen? That's crazy.
I
We don't
know.
really need to talk about it, but
I
someone with so much potential just done.
you know Zach LaVine for Ben Simmons actually does something for both teams.
How much time is left on Simmons's contract?
Simmons has 2 years left.
The Bulls can take him, and he's going to sit there and do nothing. Get
Yeah.
rid of him. Yeah,
I mean, it's like a gamble where it's like I could see that paying off for both teams in some way, shape, or form.
yeah.
So
Chicago, it's a
teams that
salary dump and a rebuild. You're not doing anything with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons isn't. He's not doing anything.
yeah,
So maybe, I mean, that could help Brooklyn. That's your one piece. Ben Simmons isn't doing anything. You add Zach LaVine, who could be that scorer, their go-to guy. Maybe they can make a bigger push in the East and get out of that play-in. But again, I don't think LaVine's enough to get anywhere deep in the
yeah.
playoffs.
I
Uh,
still think they need a little more size at the 4 spot to put themselves in a situation like that. Like Mikal Bridges and Zach LaVine aren't. I feel like that's just like back to like DeRozan and LaVine. It'll be really fun, but will it get you anywhere?
that's no, but I mean, I don't think they're trying to get anywhere right now with what they have. I think they're just trying to sell tickets, and that'll
Yeah.
be fun. Sell tickets. So
Yeah.
the next team I think is obviously going to be in the playoffs. I think they'll get healthy. They'll get it together. It's the Phoenix Suns. They're slightly above 500. We know who's on that team. They don't have depth, but they have a great starting lineup. They're obviously going to be in the playoffs. I don't think many teams will want to see them in the playoffs, but realistically, and I said it when they first made the trade, I don't think that they're a championship team. I've said enough times about Kevin Durant and where I think he is, but yeah, they're better than the 17th.
I
But
agree. One thing that I would keep an eye on with the Phoenix Suns is every year after the trade deadline, there's going to be players that are bought out. And because Phoenix doesn't have a lot of depth, they're the kind of team that I could absolutely see sign someone. And I'm kind of wondering if a point guard will become available, a starting caliber point guard that'll kind of balance this team out a little bit. Um, that's the kind of destination that I could see a lot of guys coming in because they could say, "Oh, I could be the starting one, or I could be the first guy off the bench." So something to keep an eye on for that group
yeah,
that I think could improve their title odds. By the way, I'm just going to point this out real quick since we're nearly halfway in. Lakers are down 108 to 103 to the Knicks, 49 seconds left.
yeah, that game's over.
Oh,
They're
what?
not.
You don't think the Lakers have a closer who could finish the game for them and win it all for them?
No, I don't think they're going to come back 5 points in that little time because they're probably fouling right now. Who else is?
I'm not sure, but I think it's a jump ball with Randall and LeBron.
I mean, LeBron's got 25, 10, and 11. His, I don't know how much you need. What's Julius Randle doing?
27, 13, and 3.
13. What's AD? 29 and 14. Yeah, this is a game where you look at D'Angelo Russell, 9 points, 3 of 10. Probably need a little more there. But
Okay.
3 of 13 from three. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. But no, I don't think they're
Brunson's playing really well too.
down 7 now.
7 points. Quickly, 20 points off the bench. So this was a fun game.
Houston's at 16. I'll let you talk more about Houston. You've seen them play. This says they have the second best defensive rating, which I think defense wins you a lot of games. You build a lot of consistency there. I haven't seen any of Houston's basketball this season, but
I've watched multiple Houston
I've,
Rockets games. Their
I've
defense
seen
is
enough of
for
it.
real.
Yeah.
Their defense is for real. They have a very good defensive team. I was a little worried when they made these signings, Fred Van Vliet, and Dylan Brooks. But Ime Udoka is the perfect coach for this team. He's a great defensive minded coach. Their number one pick was it last year, Jabari Smith. Everybody hyped up as being this franchise player. He came in and looked at Jabari Smith as a defensive player who's capable of scoring. He runs the offense through Sengun, who is probably most improved player this year. I think he might get it. They're playing really well. Fred Van Vliet is a great point guard for this group because I think tonight he had 17 assists but still had 24 points. They're playing through Van Vliet and through Sengun, and the other youngins are kind of learning along the way. They're learning how to win. This is the kind of recipe that if Jabari Smith and Jalen Green can learn from and educate themselves on how to win, it's the kind of situation that will teach players like Tatum was in this situation. He had Horford and Gordon Hayward there.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of learned how to play from these veterans. And I think this is a really similar situation to that. So they're the kind of team I think that could be very good for the next couple of years. Are they title contending team? I don't think so. But
I think Udoka's a great coach.
yeah.
It sucked that Boston had to. I don't think they had to, but they got rid of him. That was a whole different situation, but I think he would have continued to be a great coach in Boston. I think they would have had more success. Obviously, Houston in their first season with him coaching, they're off to a good start. Can they sustain it? Will they be I mean, they're the ninth seed in the West. I don't think they're making any deep runs. I don't think they have all the pieces yet, but they have a good coach.
If we ever do an episode on NBA scandals,
No, there you go. I think that one will be led by Tony Parker.
Oh, there's a lot of them, man. There's a lot of them. So, but Tony Parker definitely will be up there.
Here you go. Here's Zico's gonna have some fun talking this next one. The Knicks are at number 15.
The New York Knicks, yes. I said earlier for anybody who didn't watch any of the earlier episodes, I'm a big Knicks fan. I got to go to a game at Madison Square Garden. It was electric. I was younger. I think I was 17 years old when I went. It was a lot of fun. And so like being a Laker fan who always went to Laker games both at the Forum and at Staples Center, being in Madison Square Garden it's special. It really is. And so I fell in love with the Knicks back then. This was when Larry Johnson was on that team and Patrick Ewing. So Marcus Camby. It was a fun team. I really enjoyed them. Since then, I've been a Knicks fan. I follow them and I root for them. Unfortunately, they're a miserable team to root for most seasons. But I think they're on the right track right now. There's something about the Knicks that I have to point out because I think there's two teams in the NBA that are in position to go from really good to title contender very quickly. And it all has to do with what the franchise, the management system has put in place. The New York Knicks do not have a superstar on that team. They have Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, who are basically two B players. And then they have RJ Barrett, who's going to be a B player. He's just a little younger. He needs a few more years before he's there. They have Mitchell Robinson, who is a potential defensive player of the year candidate. He's hurt right now. He didn't play tonight, but Mike, you'd love Mitchell Robinson if you haven't watched him. Amazing center, plays defense with all his heart. He's one of those guys that you love having on your team. I wish the Lakers had him so AD can play the four. And then they have really good bench depth. Hartenstein, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Manuel Quickley. They have guys who can play. They are also in position to make a trade for pretty much any contract that you want. They could put together multiple pieces to get a star. Who that star will be, I don't know. Earlier in the season, I'm sorry, last season, they talked about getting, I can't remember who it was last season. Earlier this season, they talked about Joel Embiid, Karl-Anthony Towns. There was a lot of people that thought they have the pieces to make these, and there's a reason why. They have the contracts, they have multiple young players that are enticing to other teams, and they have so many draft picks, they don't know what to do with them. The only other team that's in this exact same situation, has the contracts to match with the draft picks, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I believe both those teams, which those are two of my favorite teams to watch right now, can make a trade and put themselves into title contention this year. I don't say they're going to win the title, but they could put themselves in that conversation of, I think the Knicks could bypass.
And I'm assuming you're saying the Knicks are that fourth team in the East that could make noise. And
Yeah. And there's a couple players that are rumored to be available that they're interested in that I think could be that. One of the players they've talked about that I've heard them talk about is Kyle Kuzma, which I don't think that's going to jump them, but that could be that fourth, fifth spot for Kyle Kuzma where he could do really well. I think that could get them into like the Eastern Conference Finals if he accepts it and plays well. But the guy who I really like for this team that I think would be ideal is actually Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is not happy in New Orleans. He already told the team that he won't re-sign with the team. I think Brandon Ingram will be traded this season. He's going to be a free agent after this season. If he opts out, I think he's either going to the Miami Heat or he's going to the Knicks. And those are the two teams where it's like, I think the Knicks can offer more and better pieces, but Miami seems to find a way to get guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get him. But Brandon Ingram, I feel like he's another B player. And I feel like if you have Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson, I think that could beat Philly. I genuinely, honestly do. I think that would give enough length to bother the Boston Celtics. And that's enough offensive firepower to maybe get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And if everything goes right, maybe get to the Western Conference Finals. Do I think they'll beat Denver in the finals? No. But they're the kind of team where I actually think that they're in position, and I think that's due to management. They put them in a position where they have a chance, which I actually respect that. So OKC and New York are my two favorite teams to watch because of what the organization did.
yeah, I don't see the Knicks getting there. They can be there. They'll be fun to watch. They'll maybe force a game 6, but I don't see them in the Eastern. I don't see them beating Boston, Milwaukee, or Philly. Same with these next guys. Cleveland, number 14. Again, another team that's slightly above 500 right now. They're the 6th seed in the East. The East is, again, I think it's just 3 teams that are really competitive there. I think Cleveland is just, they got some good guys. They can score some points. Even though their offensive rating isn't that great, their defensive rating is number 9, but I just don't think they have enough.
I don't think they have enough either. I think they're a team that could easily be exposed. I think if you cut off the head of the snake, you can defeat this team. And the Knicks did that last season against Donovan Mitchell. They're good, they're fun, they're young, but that's another player who I think is going to be gone at some point. I don't think Donovan Mitchell's staying there. If I personally thought what I think is going to happen this season, I think Brandon Ingram is going to go to the Knicks. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to end up going to the Heat. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
And
so personal.
Darius Garland has a fractured jaw. He's out for a month. Evan Mobley's having surgery, knee surgery, so he's out for a month or more.
Although I believe Cleveland did win tonight. By the way, end of the game, Knicks beat the Lakers 114-109. Again, Randall 27 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists. Brunson 29 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Quickly 20 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists off the bench for the Lakers. LeBron James 25 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, triple-double in the loss. AD 32 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists. Austin Reeves had 20 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists off the bench. This is something that's bugging me, though. D'Angelo Russell, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists.
Yeah, he's been a disappointment for what they thought he was going to do. I mean, this is the stuff I always look out. The Knicks out rebounded them. They had 12 more rebounds. They took 11 less threes.
Knicks are the best deep rebounding team in the NBA, by the way.
Yeah, and then they got to the line 10. They had 10 more free throws than the Lakers did. So you look at that type of stuff. You look at those are the if you're out rebounding a team, getting more free throws, and make a higher percentage of threes, you're traditionally going to win that game in this NBA.
Yeah.
Uh,
Moving on, number 13, Indiana Pacers. They're starting to come down to earth.
they're starting to be the Pacers. They realize that they weren't going to win this tournament now that it's over. They know they have no shot at winning a finals, so they're going to just settle back into a low-ranked Eastern Conference team.
Well, I still love their offense. They're first in the NBA in offense, 121 points a game. However, their defensive rating is 120.4, 28th in the NBA. They're bad defensively. Part of it's pace. You know, when you push the ball like that, usually you end up putting yourself in a situation where your opponent has a lot of fast breaks as well. I think they're in a position to make a trade as well. I think they will. I think they're going to try and address defense at the small forward or power forward spot. So maybe they get better, but they're kind of like in that boat with Cleveland. They're fun and exciting and young, but I don't like I love Halliburton. I love Donovan Mitchell. I don't think they're going anywhere with this group as assembled. So
I agree. Number 12 is the Pelicans. Um, they're good. They are. Where are they right now? They're the seventh seed. But if they trade Ingram and don't get a lot back that actually fits, then I don't think. I mean, even with Ingram, I don't think they're going anywhere. Zion playing better. Zion's gonna, I think, continue to develop. I think he'll be better than he has been if he stays healthy. But I think that New Orleans is just a early exit playoff team if they can even hold on.
yeah, I'm they have a lot of really good players. They really do. Like I actually I love Herb Jones. He's a defensive player of the year candidate. He's really good defensively. He can guard 1 through 5. Not every 5, but some of the smaller 5s, he can guard them. He's just an absolute pest. The guy's like 6'9" and has like a 7'3" wingspan, is a monster on the defensive end. Um, and they have Trey Murphy the third, who has been out for most of the season, but has come back. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. And it's like this is like why I kind of feel like if they did trade Brandon Ingram, I don't know how much it would hurt them if they get the right pieces back. Um, I feel like they could still have a really good team. I just something's just like weird about how they play. It's
They play to their
Zion's
competition.
energy. Yeah, it's Zion's
They're-
energy. Like it's been so bad at times. And
they're-
like sometimes I hear people talk about other players like, oh, his energy's bad, his energy's bad. Zion gets a pass for a lot of the stuff he does, and I don't get it. I don't get why he's not held under a bigger microscope because they promote him so much and they want him to be great. But I don't like watching him play.
They got to be nice so he doesn't leave. New
Well, I
Orleans.
don't know if it's just him. I feel like the NBA does the same thing. ESPN promotes Zion Williamson nonstop, and I just erase all those notifications. Honestly, whenever I see him, it's like, bro, I'm not even following this team. Why you guys setting so much of them? But yeah, moving on.
Number 11. Can't spend too much time here. I know you'll want to. We could fill a whole episode, but the Lakers are number 11. I think
Yeah, just lost
we've
again tonight. They're 15-12 now.
I think we've covered a lot of the Lakers and how we feel. I don't think it matters realistically what their record is. Come playoff time, I think they'll definitely be out of the first round. I think in a series, LeBron James still has enough for one series. Are they a finals caliber team right now? I'd say no. I think they need to do a lot in order to get it together. Obviously, I think that this season's goal was already achieved as far as LeBron's mindset. Uh, he'll tell you he wants to win a championship. I'm sure he does want to win a championship. Obviously, that would go a long way to help his legacy, but I don't think there's enough pieces around him that are realistically holding up their end of the bargain. I don't think AD is a number one guy. It's going to be tough for he's 38, he'll be 39-year-old to carry a team as the number one guy. Austin Reeves has gotten better, but he's still coming off the bench and he plays well, he puts up numbers, but they need more out of Russell. They need more out of these other guys.
I thought about this since we talked about the Lakers earlier this season and the Zach LaVine situation and him wanting out. I think they have to make that trade. As constructed, they're going to be a low end team in the West. They could possibly be a 1 out in the first round, depending on who they face. But there's like light at the end of the tunnel for me in some areas. Their defensive rating is actually really good, considering that they start D'Angelo Russell, who is a pretty poor defender. Their defense is solid. I credit a lot of that to guys like Taurean Prince, Austin Reeves, Anthony Davis, Rui, and Vanderbilt. So like they have defensive potential to be really, really good, which come playoffs is really important for every team.
I mean, you'll disagree. I think they could beat Minnesota, OKC, or Sacramento as a lower seed.
Which is what I was going to get to right now. I think they have to pull the trigger on the Zach LaVine trade because right now their offensive rating is 20th. Their offense is pretty bad at times. It's very similar to what I was just talking about with Philadelphia. You're going to see Embiid and Tyrese Maxey go off, and then like every other player get like 6 points. Like there's been nights like that, and I think you have to have a number 3 option on this team where LeBron can at least go. Like if I'm a coach and I'm planning my subs, I'm probably going to sub AD out first and then have him come back in when LeBron sits so that I could kind of split those minutes. AD absolutely needs someone next to him that could shoulder the perimeter load. And it's been Austin Reeves, and Austin Reeves was really good at it last season. I think they need someone who they assume D'Angelo Russell will be able to do more. I think if they make the Zach LaVine trade, I think that the coach will be able to shoulder some of LeBron's minutes a little bit more so that he doesn't have to wear himself out come playoffs. And I think that would drastically improve their offensive rating. Do I think that they're going to be a top 3 in the West? Probably not. But they could. It's the way this league works is one injury can suddenly turn everything around. And I actually think the Zach LaVine trade might be the best option for this team at this point, just because their defense still is solid. Their offense is it's been pretty bad, honestly, at times. A lot of people have been hard on Darvin Ham. I don't think it's him. I see a lot of guys just clanking shots left. Like when Taurean Prince comes out, Taurean Prince is your 3rd leading scorer on a bunch of games. Like something isn't going right. So I think they have to pull this trigger on this trade. I think it's the best option for this team at this point. So at least to make the season more exciting.
Maybe they can. I don't think that changes too much of their ceiling, but you never know.
I don't. It could get them to the Western Conference Finals against the Nuggets or a certain team. And Lakers fans, we raise banners. We don't care about anything else. Every other season is a losing season to us. But
got an in-season tournament banner,
right? Which I couldn't care less for, honestly. I'd trade that for a title in a heartbeat. I would trade 10 in-season tournament titles for an NBA championship in a heartbeat. I couldn't care less for that. Although it was exciting to watch, I want an NBA title. And it would probably be the best chance for LeBron to have an opportunity to get to the finals again. So even though I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, hey, I'm a huge Laker fan. I think if he came and played for us, I want him to have the opportunity. So
there you go. Magic starting the top 10. Orlando Magic.
Have you watched Magic play yet?
No, I've seen Paulo play. I've seen some highlights here and there, but I haven't really watched them play too much. I think that they're going to be the Eastern Conference overachieving team of the year.
They're okay. Like you and I love defensive minded teams. So like I've mentioned certain defensive minded teams to you before. You have to watch the Orlando Magic play. They are excellent defensively. I mean, they're excellent. Like the Wolves and the Magic have been two of the best defensive teams I've watched this season. Um, they have great perimeter length. They press the ball like old. It's like old school basketball. Like Jalen Suggs is their starting shooting guard. He's about 6'4". Kind of reminds me of like John Starks. He's gonna full court press guys the entire freaking game. Get into their heads. He's really similar to Drew Holiday. He's just a poor man's version of it. And
You
Wagner.
know, how many people are going to have to Google John Starks?
Oh, I know. There definitely will be a few people that Google John Starks just to see how he plays. But Wagner's playing so well. He's 6'9", has great length, and he's guarding the best player on the other team every single night. Banchero is playing really, really well. They're actually fun to watch, Mike. I highly recommend them. Their defense is great. Their rotations are great. Their energy is great, and they're actually pretty deep. They have guys coming off the bench playing excellent defense. Jonathan Isaac, who was out for like 2 years due to a really bad injury, is back and he's playing really well. He can't score to save his life, honestly. I've seen him take some horrendous shots, but his defense is unbelievable. He's the kind of guy that if he was on a team where he could get a lot of minutes, he could be a defensive player of the year candidate with what he does, but he plays limited minutes. So
January 9th. I've got it marked on my calendar. The Magic play the Timberwolves.
you got to watch that game. Honestly, you really do. I'm gonna watch that game. I really like both these teams. I think they're really fun to watch, so I highly recommend it.
All right, I got it. I got it flagged. I'll
Okay.
get a, I'll get a reminder. Hopefully, I watch them before then, but that'd be that covers both of the teams, right?
Yep.
Number 9. I think a team that's overachieving. I think that the Dallas Mavericks, by the way, I think they figured something out with the Luka and Kyrie. They're scoring. They seem to be taking turns. I think Luka is a monster. Um, Dude's incredible. And even without Kyrie, what is it, 6-2 without Kyrie. So that's all Luka shouldering that load. But I think that they are, like I said, overachieving. They'll probably be the West Coast overachieving team, but they're playing good. They're fun to watch. Luka always has a smile on his face. He just kills people.
He was matched up against his buddy Jokic tonight, and unfortunately they lost. It was a little bit of a rough one. Watching a game like this, Luka I think had like 38 points. The second leading scorer on his team without Kyrie there was Dante Exum with 11 points. Um, this is one of those situations that kind of worries me. It's kind of like what the Lakers have. Like Luka and Kyrie did figure something out. They're playing really well. The offense is just gelling with those two. They desperately need a third option. They desperately need someone who's going to come in and could hit a shot. Uh, there's no one else on that team that is a legit. Well, actually, Tim Hardaway Jr. Actually, I'm sorry, is a solid offensive threat. However, there's games where he's gonna do what he did tonight, basically, and lay an egg. So Grant Williams is a great defensive minded power forward. He's not going to score that much. He might have a big game here and there hitting some shots, but they desperately need a number 3 scoring option. So they're a team I hope makes a move at some point. I don't know for who. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that would be an ideal fit for this group, but maybe a small forward who's a 3-and-D player. But actually, Bogdanovich from Detroit, I think they should do that. I think Luka would like that trade. They have the pieces to make that move work, actually.
And you know Detroit don't care.
Yeah.
They're
They apparently want to hold on to Bogdanovich because they like him. So poor guy.
Poor guy.
All right. Number 8, Sacramento Kings.
the Kings are the Kings. They're gonna be good. They're gonna play. They're probably gonna host. Let's see. Yeah, they'll probably stay there. They'll probably host a playoff series, but realistically, no, they probably won't actually. I don't think they'll keep that fourth seed looking at the teams now, and we'll cover one of them in a minute. Um, yeah, I think the Kings they'll be in the playoffs, but they're not a championship contender. They don't have enough.
I really like the Kings. The Kings are
I
really
know you do. I
I
know you do.
I think De'Aaron Fox is a superstar in the making. I don't think he gets enough coverage. I think him and Sabonis are a perfect duo together. I think one of the problems with this team is you're kind of waiting for some guys to develop. Keegan Murray is younger and he's going to need some time. He's already had some injuries earlier this season, so he's been kind of in and out of the lineup. This team's so much fun to watch play basketball. Um, Being a Laker fan, I had a love-hate relationship with the Sacramento Kings when Shaq and Kobe were playing against them. Um, I used to watch the Sacramento Kings play a lot back then. I rooted for them every single game aside from when they were playing the Lakers back then. So it's fun to see that town kind of excited again. Um, they're a really fun team to watch. I think they could. They're the kind of team that maybe they make a trade, or maybe it's just 2 years away where they're
Everyone can't make a trade, Zico.
everyone can and everyone will make a trade at the deadline, Mike. At least a small one. Okay. You're gonna see me. I'm gonna be giddy come deadline. I love the deadline. It's my favorite time of the year. So
Oh man. So here's a team that I think is going to continue to climb the rankings. We talked about them in our first episode, and once they did, and I'm going to take credit here. I think they listened. They watched the podcast and listened.
they absolutely
Once
watch
they
it.
moved. Once they moved Westbrook to the bench instead of starting, I said it could have been Westbrook or Harden. I think Westbrook was obviously the better choice. Since then, they've been on a roll. What do they have now? 8 in a row they've won. Yeah, they're 8 in a row, 9 of their last 10.
They won tonight too, I believe.
They're,
So they're
yeah,
16
that's
now.
part of their 8 in a row was tonight's, and they've got it together. They're all starting to play. They've got Harden mixed in. Harden's playing good basketball from James Harden standards. They have enough defensive guys around to hide Harden. Although defense is a lot of effort, and I think in the playoffs, if he buys in and actually at least tries, then they can probably continue to cover it. But they made that move, and now they're playing good basketball. Um, they jumped up in these power rankings from 15 to 7. I think they'll continue to jump up. I think they'll pass Sacramento in the standings. I think they'll pass Dallas in the standings. They're going to be a top 4 seed. They're definitely going to host a playoff series.
I'm going to give a hot take right now. I think the Clippers are the dark horse to win the title this season.
Is that a hot take?
I think that is, considering how hard I was on Harden earlier in the season. I'm still not a big Harden fan. However, the fact that this team has the 7th best defense in the NBA right now, a lot of that's contributed to the great defensive players that they have in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and even like Terrence Mann, who's a great on-ball defender. But right now they're ranked 11th in offense, and they're starting to figure out their offense. So, when I'm looking at Kawhi and Harden go for games over 30 points, winning in the fashion that they have won, I think they destroyed Indiana tonight, by the way. Go look and see what they did to Halliburton. They absolutely destroyed the Pacers today. They beat the Knicks on Saturday as well. I think
Halliburton
20 points.
Halliburton was 3 of 12, 1 of 5 from 3, had 8 points. He did have 11 assists, but I mean, that's not what you want. Their deepest bench guy, McLaren, had 34 off of the bench, and those are the guys you want to try to let beat you, are those bench guys. But you talk about that, and then you see these starters. Paul George had 27, Kawhi Leonard had 28, Zubac had 18, Harden had 35. Westbrook had 10 off the bench, and Norman Powell, who's been playing insane, he had 19 off the bench, 4 or 6 from three. I mean, they're getting it together. PJ Tucker didn't even play.
There is a
Uh,
guy who probably will get moved, and I think there's going to be multiple
I
playoff.
think tons of injury.
Go
PJ
on.
Tucker, in my opinion, would be a great fit in Golden State to replace Draymond Green.
Actually, I agree with that. I would, but I wouldn't want him to replace him.
No, no, no. I'm just saying, like,
That's an interesting part of the NBA. If you're the Warriors, you want PJ Tucker, and you probably have a piece that the Clippers would be interested in. But if you're the
William.
Clippers, do you really want to hand over PJ Tucker and put
No, 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 no. I
Damian?
don't. That's the Clipper. If
I don't see
PJ
them
Tucker gets traded, it's back to the East,
exactly. So
or they'll trade him to what's that team? Hang on. Or they'll trade him to Portland.
no, I don't see them doing that. He's not in a situation where but you know what? He could be one of those guys that gets put in the buyout market that becomes available and can sign. And I could actually see him going back to Phoenix, honestly,
Yeah,
where he'd get minutes there. So
he'd get tons of burn in Golden State. I think he'd help Golden State a ton. But yeah, I mean, back to the Clippers overall. I think that they're going to be a tough team to beat if they're all healthy and they're all playing, and no one wants to, sit the bench and get too much rest, or I need a vacation for a minute because I'm sore. They'll be fine.
considering how that first 5 games with James Harden went and how bad it could have gone, like I was worried that Kawhi was gonna be the one to react, like either him or me. I'm not doing it. I felt like he might be the one to react because he's quiet, but he's also kind of demanding in his own way. So I was worried about that. But credit to Tyronn Lue. I think he's doing a good job making it all work. There's a lot of ego there.
I'm sure Kawhi and Paul George talked, and they agreed on James Harden coming and what that would entail.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Milwaukee Bucks, another team who started figuring it out.
Another team who, despite Middleton,
Well, Middleton's one of the guys who finally started figuring it out. He's playing much better in the last 5 games for what I've seen. So he's legit fourth option, excuse me, behind Brook Lopez.
yeah, well, let's not do that. Let's not.
I'm joking. I had
push
to.
that favorite player envelope.
Joking.
I know.
But yeah, they're playing a lot better. Their offense is great. It's not hard for their offense to be great behind Giannis and Lillard alone. But if Middleton starts hitting shots as well,
Shout out to Giannis. 64 in a game is a lot, especially from a guy who can't shoot threes.
so that was interesting to me because we talked about in that last episode the old school greats like Wilt Chamberlain, who has scored 100. We said that the guys today wouldn't have been able to score 100 back then, like to try and show how great Wilt was. Giannis scored 64 points against the Pacers, who don't have a good defense, but are a lot more athletic, are bigger than any of the teams back then. Do you think Giannis could be one of those guys who would go in and at the pace he plays back then score over 100 points? Because I think he could.
I had this conversation with Brandon Tony watched our last episode and was very direct in how he feels about older players being in a top 10 list. I'm sure Giannis could go back there and do what Wilt did, but I'm also sure that Wilt could come play in today's game and do what Giannis did.
Yeah, I think, but see, that's the difference. Like Wilt averaged like 50 points and 20 rebounds in one season. He's not doing that. But like Giannis,
no. I mean, I still think he would be a dominant player in the NBA today.
I think you'd be looking at something like Giannis and Embiid. I think that's what you'd be looking at with Bill Russell and with Wilt Chamberlain. I think
even Kareem.
Yeah, in the era before, I think you're looking at Shaq and Duncan, something in that conversation. Like that's
I don't
where
think any of them are Shaq
I agree. I'm just saying, like in that,
or Duncan for that matter. I think those two are a lot different than Giannis.
I agree. I just kind of meant like
Yeah,
being in that conversation
that level.
era. Yeah. So, although I do think Shaq and Duncan would be ahead of both of them if they had played in their era. So, but yeah, I'm not surprised by it. I think Giannis is playing extremely well. The fact that he has a player like Lillard next to him that can shoot the way he does, it's really hard to double him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna
Well,
have
yes, if they spread out, it opens up the lane more.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
All right, your top five, and the first one I think is rated a lot lower than any of us would realistically rank them, but it's again based on how they're currently playing. The Denver Nuggets, I they're they're probably the best team in the West right now.
agree. They're
If
this
healthy,
low because they had Jamal Murray out.
yeah, yeah, and that's you can't rate them on what they could be. You have to rate them on what they're doing. They're 17-10. They are the third seed in the West, but again, that's without their starting point guard and probably their second best player.
Well, he is their second best player. I don't think anyone else
Yeah,
is on that team. So
probably.
yeah, I'm not worried about Denver in that aspect. My only worry is, like I said a couple episodes ago, I think that Denver, it's really hard to win back to back in today's NBA. I just I just don't think players are as durable as they used to be. And my worry is that they're going to have an injury situation that's going to put them in a situation that's going to make it difficult for them to win back to back. So as we get closer to the playoffs, we'll see how they are health wise, and we'll kind of go from there, I guess.
I mean, they, yeah, they're going to be fine. They get healthy, stay healthy. I mean, that's if for everybody in the league. You got to have your players on the court. You want to have everybody healthy. You want to beat everybody at full strength. But I'm not concerned about Denver right now at all.
Moving on to number 4, one of my favorite teams in the league right now, Oklahoma City Thunder.
And again, I think they're playing much better than they will at the end of the year. I think they'll kind of settle into maybe a fifth seed ish.
I don't think so, Mike. I actually think they're going to be a top 3 team in the West. It's kind of like Sacramento last season.
So who's falling out? You don't think the Clippers will get above them?
Um,
You think Denver and Minnesota is going to stay up there? OKC will stay up there, and the Clippers just won't get there.
I think the Clippers will get there, but I actually think that I don't think they'll end up passing them at that point. I
Okay.
just don't. I have this feeling that the way this team is playing, look, playoffs will be different. They're still a young team, but it's like Sacramento last season.
Okay.
I feel like they're that team that they're going to be like Sacramento was last season. So I feel like once playoffs come, I could see them getting bounced in the first round because playoff basketball is a little different. Regular season, I think they're built to win a lot of games during the regular season because of their youth, because of their health, because of the way they're playing. When they play the Clippers, I think they'll probably lose to the Clippers because the Clippers have the defense to slow Shy down the way they just slowed Tyrese down. But I don't. I think I don't think you realize how good this team is. Look, defensive rating, they're 6th.
Mhm.
They're a really good defensive team. Offensive rating, they're 7th. They can score the ball. Pace, they're 6th. So they're doing it all at a fast pace.
Well,
Their
yeah.
net rating is 4th. Shy is playing at an MVP level. He's a legitimate MVP candidate. I would not be surprised if he wins it this season. Honestly, I won't. I think Embiid's probably going to win it. But if something happens, which Philly did lose the last 3 games, if something happens and OKC hangs around this spot and Shy keeps doing what he's doing, they're going to go from being a team that didn't make the playoffs to 1, 2, or 3 seed in the West. He's in the conversation for it. They're just the way they're constructed and the fact that they could still make more moves. I really like this group. I really, really do. I'm just giddy about them, honestly. I wanted to tie some
We're
back
not.
there, but yeah,
We're
we're
not
not gonna
doing
go there
that.
anymore. Yeah, I honestly, I think that they're legit, and Chet
So,
Chet made it all work. You know, Shy is their MVP, but Chet made it all work. So
so
if
good,
they can
good.
stay healthy, I
Touching on what you said, NBA.com has SGA at number 4 in their MVP ladder, which they put out weekly, with Giannis, Joker, and Embiid in front of him. So you're not the only one who thinks he's playing at that MVP level. I mean, the guy's putting up numbers. He's got 31, 5, and 6. And he plays quick. But again, I think overall OKC is going to settle into the 4th, 5th, 6th seed when it's all said and done. If it's just where I think realistically it'll be. But comparing them to last year's Sacramento, that makes sense. Team that gets there and then hits the playoffs and realizes that they got to change something for the playoffs. So,
well, I'm calling it right now. They're gonna trade Davis Bertans, who's making $17 million, and they're gonna attach him to a bunch of draft picks, and they're gonna trade him for an amazing
can we
sixth
can
man for
we
that team.
can
So
we just can we go through and just set up a spreadsheet or something that tracks all of your trade guesses and just see
yeah,
which
that's a
ones
good
hit?
idea, honestly. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
I mean,
Love
you've already
love
listed
putting
at least
trades
6
in my
trades
head.
this episode.
Yeah, I love doing that actually. So I could set that up. I could
And
give
if
you a
any of
list
them
of what I
hit,
expect to happen.
when any of them hit, you can just use that as a resume for a GM. You can be the GM of the what's the Lakers G League team? You can go be their GM.
That's another side conversation I think you and I have had at some point, but technically not supposed to talk about in situations like this. So we'll go over it again. Give you a reminder. All right.
Number 3.
On from that. I'm sure somebody's gonna be curious about what the hell Zico's talking about. They think I'm already crazy. So
Number 3.
number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers, who have lost their last 3 games, I believe. They lost again tonight to the Bulls.
No, they're only on a 1-game losing streak.
Are they? I could swear that they're on a 3-game losing streak.
They killed the Hornets on Saturday,
Okay.
and
My,
they killed Detroit before that.
okay, my bad. I was off. I might have been mixing them up with somebody
Yeah,
else.
you definitely are. They've been winning nonstop.
Okay, they did lose tonight to the Bulls, which was a rough loss for them. Philly's great. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. I'm a huge Embiid fan.
Yeah,
He's
they're 7-3 in their last 10.
just, huh?
They're 7-3 in their last 10.
Okay, I must have mixed something in my head with someone else. I don't know. My apologies.
You're
Uh,
good.
one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses in the NBA. Their offensive rating is 2nd. Their defense is 5th. They're another team that has capabilities of making a good trade and putting themselves in a better situation to win. But they only have expiring contracts. They don't have a lot of draft picks. So I don't see them getting a superstar player. They're the kind of team where I could see them trading for Kyle Kuzma because that's what's going to be available. I just don't know if that helps them. Like, I don't know if he's the right fit. I keep thinking to myself, who they don't have enough to get Brandon Ingram. They don't have enough to get Donovan Mitchell. They could get Bogdanovich from Detroit, but he's still like a number 4 option to me. I think he'd fit really well in Philly, space the floor really well for Maxey and Embiid. I'm just trying to think what gets them over the hump in terms of getting past Boston and the Bucks.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, they definitely need something to get past Boston or the
Yeah.
Bucks. I think that they are indeed the 3rd team out of those 3 in the East. I don't know who they're going to get, if they're going to get anybody. I think Embiid obviously is their go-to. They're not going to bring in anybody that's going to butt heads with that guy. So I don't really
They
know where.
have the financial capability of trading for Zach LaVine right now, by the way. It would be expiring contracts. Like, and I don't think the Bulls want that. Like, they might give like future picks, but the value in those picks are actually pretty low considering Embiid's relatively young. So
He's in his
I don't
late
know.
20s, right? Let's look. Hang
I
on.
think he's 29.
29, spot on.
Yeah, him and Randall were in the same draft. They're both 29 years old. And Wiggins was in that draft too, and I believe Marcus Smart. So they're all around the same age, and those guys have Embiid has another 3-4 years of dominance, and maybe he'll fall off a little after that. But I don't think that that's enough for the Bulls to get the LaVine trade done. So I'm curious to see who they can trade for. Like, you're looking for a contract that, man,
Again, not everybody's making trades, man.
they're in a situation they want to. It's Daryl Morey, bro. Come on, like Daryl
Yeah,
Morey's
no,
known for
I
this.
got you. Not
Yeah,
everybody's going to make a trade.
Marcus Morris has. Well, no, you know what though, Mike? You're not thinking about it like this. There's teams that are going to need to dump salary. That they want to rebuild, right? There's going to be one of those teams at the end of that list who needs to dump salary. So there could be someone who wants to get rid of somebody's contract. So
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
I think they're more of a buyout market team, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Number 2, the Timberwolves, who were number 1 last week, but they're number 2 now.
They actually lost to the Pelicans, but what's his name did not play in that game. Anthony Edwards. I take that. I don't really care for that loss. It's not a big deal to me. They're still the number 1 defense in the NBA.
Yep.
They're a great defensive team. They won tonight, by the way. They beat the Miami Heat. They were down to the Miami Heat, and Anthony Edwards went off. He went big boy mode, and he did it against Jimmy Butler. He had a great game. He dropped, I think, 30 points. Great second half for him. And, Karl-Anthony Towns is playing really well. This team, like I said, Mike, if something happens and Denver has an injury and they can't repeat, I could see this Minnesota Timberwolves team beating out every other team in the West, aside from maybe the Clippers now, since Clippers are playing really well. But they have size that would actually bother the Clippers. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how it's going to work out for them. But they're playing very well. They absolutely deserve this number 2 spot. So good for them.
Yeah. I mean, they're a regular season team. They are, built for the regular season. They're going to do well. They're definitely going to get a home playoff series. Do I think they'll go deep in the playoffs? No, I don't. I think that teams are smart enough and will stretch that defense out to the perimeter where they will be exposed more often than not. Like I said earlier in the year with every Rudy Gobert team, he can't recover from the perimeter. He wants to sag, and you can't give up the open threes to any playoff team. It's just not going to work out.
So teams have been doing that to them pretty consistently, but they have a 3-headed monster at the big man spot, with Gobert, with Karl-Anthony Towns, and with Naz Reid. They rotate those guys together. Naz can play the 4 or the 5. So I've seen them go small, where they put Towns at the center and they take Jaden McDaniels, they put him at the power forward. They have so much flexibility with their team that they still could find a way to get by those teams. I think part of that will end up being coaching, deciding a series like that.
Yeah, but then you have egos and you start chirping, and all of a sudden your locker room's not happy because Gobert's not getting minutes, and I want to play.
I really don't think that's going to happen with this team, man. The way they're playing, I've seen Gobert sit certain games and not say a word because they're winning. And again, right now, this is Anthony Edwards' team. This dude is absolutely balling. If you didn't watch the highlights from tonight, you have to watch the highlights. He took it to the Heat. 38 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. When you have a player like that, I think that changes everything regardless. So I think Anthony Edwards is better than Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Already, he's better than
I
Donovan.
think,
So
yeah, Anthony Edwards has played well. I mean, he played well. The most I saw him play was Team USA. But yeah, he's a great player. He's a good player. He's going to continue to have a good career. But at the end of the day, it's more than just one guy.
agree. I just think that that's more of a team than you realize, and I don't think you've watched them play once yet, even though I've recommended them. So I'm hoping
I know.
once you do, you're going to be like, oh, they have a chance. I don't think you realize how much of a chance they have is what I mean to say.
I'll probably watch, and I don't know if they're scheduled yet, but I'll probably watch a lot of Christmas games.
Okay.
Usually
I don't know
on.
if they're scheduled for Christmas games or not. One team I know that is scheduled is the Boston Celtics, who are 14-0 at home.
Yeah, they're right now the team that I would see coming out of the East and most likely winning or at least challenging Denver, depending on what they've learned from previous seasons. They have all their same pieces. Obviously, they got rid of Marcus Smart, but I think that they overall have a better team. And that experience helps. That playoff experience, that finals experience, that all helps. And as long as they're at home, they got to keep that record up so they can get home games. And if they're hosting the finals, then they have as good a shot as anybody, in my opinion, right now.
I'm gonna have another hot take.
Oh man.
I think that the Celtics won't get to the finals this year.
Oh, okay.
And I think the reason they won't get to the finals this year is because I think Porzingis will end up being hurt in the playoffs.
Oh, so you want to take it to injury? All right, I can see injury derailing it. I mean, obviously, you're talking about people at full health. I've put people back into healthy. We're saying if such and such is healthy. So yeah, health plays a big role. We've said that numerous times, but
there's a reason why I'm thinking this right now.
this is always hurt.
How many playoffs games has Porzingis played in?
Zero. I don't know.
He's never gone that far. And when the playoffs come, he's going to have to shoulder a lot more, especially being the post player on this team. And he's going to have matchups where he's going to have to be guarding Giannis. He's going to have to guard Embiid, Randall, Bam. Like the physicality of playoffs, I'm a little worried about his durability because he's never had to go through it for a long period of time. I'm worried that he's going to get, I'm not worried. I'm hoping, I don't want to say I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the Celtics don't make it. And I have this feeling that the reason they won't make it is because of his durability.
You're hoping they don't make it, but you don't want it to be because he's hurt. You want it to be because they lose.
Agree. But I have a feeling that they will lose because of his durability.
Okay. I mean, and that happens. People get hurt constantly, and they have a history of getting hurt. It tends to repeat when they have that history, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they snap out of it.
Agree. But like
Curry got hurt over and over and over, and then now
the Celtics team without Porzingis drops offensively and defensively to me like 6 or 7 slots immediately.
Yeah, I mean he's their anchor, he's their middle, he's got to be that guy. He's got to stay healthy if they want to go deep. I think that's
and they won't have the depth that they had the last few seasons either.
So I don't think the Lakers are sitting here like, oh man, we gotta hope AD stays healthy. They're not going to trade him in case he gets hurt again. We all know AD is going to get hurt again.
Right, I agree. It's the same situation as AD. It's a guy who, in those circumstances, you're worried about their health, and if they are hurt, your chances are gone. So
You hope they don't get hurt. You don't want them to get hurt. You don't want to bank on history of them being hurt. But yeah, I think Boston is the team to beat in the East. I think they'll most likely play Denver or the Clippers. I think those are the two in the West that I would say right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if Boston won. I know you'd hate that, but it wouldn't shock me. And also, it's hard to pick the Clippers because of history and the Clippers tending to be the Clippers.
So before we end this episode, I want to go over a couple things because the power rankings also have some meaningful stats and things to look at. For the next week, I actually like that they do this. This is really cool. Week 9 team to watch, Orlando Magic. The fourth place Magic may have been humbled a bit in their 0-2 trip to Boston over the weekend, but everybody loses to Boston in Boston, and Orlando has more big games this week. They'll host the Heat on Wednesday before visiting the Bucks and the Pacers. I agree. I think Orlando's playing really well. I take a grain of salt with the losses against Boston. They're expected, but they're the kind of team that they might drop a little bit because of it, but could have some big games against these other teams. So something to keep an eye on. And then movement in the rankings, Clippers are +8 in terms of slots. New Orleans +5, Utah +3. Having fun there, Mike.
huh?
Having fun there.
No, I had to mute something real quick.
No worries, no worries.
It was good.
Free falls for the week. Lakers are -4 in slots. Indiana -3. Phoenix -3. And then the West is 47-38 against the East in interconference games after going 11-3 in the last week.
That's one thing I always like to look at just because it's fun. But the West is pretty consistent at dominating the East. I mean, I know that 47-38 isn't really dominating, so to speak, but that's been consistent over the last however many years.
Another cool stat that they do, plus/minus players of the week. Tyrese Maxey plus 128 points in 4 games last week.
That's
insane.
That's good basketball.
Yeah. Cade Cunningham -76 in 4 games last week.
And that's bad basketball.
That's rough. Anything else you want to add here, Mike?
No, I mean, I think that like we covered individually, I made my finals prediction. Obviously, it's pretty early in the season. Obviously, health plays a large role. But if I had to pick right now, I would still go Denver versus the Celtics.
If I had to pick right now, I'm picking Clippers versus the Celtics.
Clippers, okay, and that doesn't shock me at all. I can see the Clippers going. I honestly, though, don't see anyone else out of the East. I think it's the Celtics to lose. I don't see, like I said, Philly and Milwaukee wouldn't shock me, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Philly would shock me, honestly. As constructed, Philly would absolutely shock me. I really like the Sixers. I just don't think that they have enough. If you shut down one of those two, it's game over.
The Sixers have a history of riding one guy to the finals and then blowing it. You know about that.
I know that, but I just with the teams that are there in contention in the East, I just don't think that's enough for them to win it. They unless they make a trade and have a number 3 option on that team, I just don't think that's enough for them to win it. So
you think Milwaukee could?
Milwaukee, I think, could actually. Okay. I think.
So you think Eastern Conference is Boston versus Milwaukee?
Yeah,
West
right now that's
Denver versus LA. Clippers specifically.
Yeah, I think Denver versus Clippers, and I think Denver loses this time. So
what are the odds of LA versus LA, and then they get extra rest, so they're well rested going into a final series?
So I will say this: I think that if a final series ends up being, that's actually a really interesting point. I had to really think about that for a second. That could be
I,
huge.
I think a lot of people,
Western Conference teams.
I think a lot of people underestimate how much that back and forth travel
Yeah,
affects players. I mean, I know we talked about time zone. We actually touched on this earlier in an earlier podcast, and Omar was going in on it. And it's like they're all NBA players; they all know how to travel. But if you don't have to travel and you can practice in your same facilities for a 7 game series, that's going to make a world of difference to a team that is going back and forth.
that will make a world of difference to someone like LeBron. If he has that opportunity to get to a finals, it would make a world of difference to him heading into a finals. If he got to play his semifinals in a situation like that. So, or even first or second round, honestly.
Yeah, I think if the Lakers end up playing the Clippers in any round, whatever team wins that, I think is going to benefit the rest of the playoffs from whenever that series is.
I agree with that. My only worry is that I don't think the Lakers could beat the Clippers as constructed right now. Just because Kawhi is probably he is in the NBA right now. He's the perfect player to put it on LeBron. That will slow him down and bother him enough that you could beat that team with him.
All
So
right. Here's your going away question, and then we can wrap it up. Would you rather see Boston hang another banner or the Clippers hang a banner?
Clippers, like without hesitation. I'm not a Clipper
Do
hater. I
you
know
think
some
they put it? You think they'd put it right in the middle of all the Lakers ones? Just
they're getting their own arena.
well, let's pretend they don't right now. That is that next. Wait, is that next season?
Yeah, it's next season.
Oh, so
They'd
then
hang it in their new arena. I
I would still hang one if I was Balmer. I would pay extra money and just hang one in crypto, anyways.
look, I know like I know there's Laker fans that hate the Clippers. I'm not one of those. I look at the Clippers as like my little brother. Like I'm the Lakers, Dino's the Clippers. Like it doesn't bother me like one bit. Like if they were to win it, it's like, oh, you got one, good job, buddy. Like that's how I'd look at it. It wouldn't faze me at all. So yeah, I'd be happy for him. Like all those years that we beat the living hell out of them. Who
But
cares?
it's what have you done for me lately, then? They'd be the champions of LA.
No, they wouldn't. That's not how that works. Like you won a championship in LA. That doesn't mean you're the champions of LA. Like we have 17 titles. Like it's not the same to me now. See, you're not a Laker fan, so you don't get it. You're not a Laker fan, so
I get it. Sometimes you have to watch the History Channel to enjoy, the good old days. I get it.
they weren't the good
I
old days.
know.
Just won one recently. When was the last time the
I know.
Spurs won a title?
I don't know. But your most recent one came with my most recent one, so we're all good.
Yeah,
I follow
you
players.
being a LeBron fan,
I
but
watch players, man. You guys can all
you
hate
like
on
the
me.
Spurs.
Comment for that.
You
Like and
like the
subscribe and tell
Spurs.
me. Tell me. I almost missed that because Omar wasn't here.
Yeah. Say it
It was
again.
out of our routine. Like and subscribe, everybody. And
Okay.
if you miss Omar, comment that. If you didn't miss Omar, you can comment that too.
I kind of missed Omar.
I did. Omar adds a little bit of
Comic relief. Hold on.
comic relief. There you go.
Let's
So you guys didn't know that he's the
he
comic
might be
relief.
sleeping right now, but let's mess with Omar really quick.
You should put up a poll. How many people believe that Omar's trolling versus being sincere?
Was Omar really sick for this episode? He's not going to answer.
No, he's not going to answer. He's sick.
I know. He's probably like on like half a bottle of NyQuil right now. That's probably what he need to knock out.
Probably asleep, hopefully.
Call has been forwarded to voicemail.
11 o'clock.
All right, we tried.
All right.
All right, Mike. Thanks for the episode tonight. Thank you to the fans who listen. Again, like Mike said, like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next week with our official top 10.
Yeah. And Omar will have a parting sentence, and I'll be more on top of my like and subscribes.
All right, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Yep.
All right, bye.